Hello there. You are listening to the Being Aloud podcast, and I am your host, Bibi Shay. Today, I am very pleased to announce that I have finally figured it out. The single kindest question you can possibly ask yourself on a rough day. Because let's face it, we all have to live through torturously long and sticky days, whether we like it or not. And being in our heads isn't always the safest or most comfortable place to be. I know I had one of those grouchy days last weekend where I was genuinely confused about how or why or when I managed to dip so low so quickly. Friday was such a happy and productive day. I started it off with a nice, strong, delicious cup of coffee, which I consciously sipped on as I read my Bible in the morning. I then went on a short but energizing outdoor run in the scorching heat, I will say, followed by a sweaty and challenging yoga practice. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, the days that start off with any form of exercise are my absolute favorite. And the post-sweat shower, oh my. Or the ice water when you're parched. These simple pleasures are worth pausing at and noting, okay? So anyway, Friday was happy and productive, and I was energetic and sociable and just all around happy. But the second I opened my eyes on Saturday morning, I immediately knew something was up. Or down, rather. You know, when you just wake up with a thick gray cloud over your head? I felt paralyzed literally all day, unable to work out, read, or be productive in any capacity. But as I continued to sulk in my pathetic uselessness for hours, I finally decided to do the hard thing of being kind to myself. So I asked myself a simple question and teared up, and then finally showered and got ready for bed. I'll tell you all about it. Let's begin today's conversation. Hello there, and welcome here or welcome back to another episode of the Being Aloud podcast. The idea of this podcast when I started it a little over a year ago was إن يكون a safe space إن احنا نتكلم على الhighs and lows, نتكلم على الحاجات اللي بنتعلمها, where we can just be people, real people who go through real life together. And it's no secret, I've been talking about it on Instagram and also with my friends and family وكل حاجة إن السنة دي سنة صعبة قوي عليا. It seems to be a theme من سنة 2020, but not for the obvious, COVID reasons and all that stuff, but for other very personal, very, individual reasons. And because of that, because of the fact that it's been a tough year for me, طبيعي إن I've been having extreme highs and extreme lows. And I mean, it's hard. It's hard on some days to really be able to sit with those feelings, especially if you are like me, the type of person who, since you've been a kid, you've been labeled as this very happy-go-lucky child, والناس على طول متوقعة إن احنا هنبقى مبتسمين ومبسوطين ومقبلين على الحياة وكل الحاجات دي. مش سهل إن أنا أواجه نفسي أو أواجه الناس اللي حواليا بالأيام الصعبة. بس الحقيقة هو أنه في أيام كتير قوي صعبة. And I feel like recently specifically بيبقى عندي يوم واحد حلو قوي وبعرف أنجز فيه وببقى very energetic, very high energy وعايز أعمل كل حاجة وكده, وبعد كده 10 of like really fighting to get myself out of bed, really struggling to face another day, face another challenge وكل الحاجات دي. And I spoke in an earlier episode about the concept of callousing our mind. And I think I owe a huge part of why I've been able to survive to this concept, this idea. إن I've been training my mind and I've been training my body to go through difficult things, challenging things. فلما الأيام بتيجي اللي هي الأيام الصعبة اللي ببقى فيها مش قادرة أعمل حاجة خالص, ببقى عندي المسل memory بتاع pushing through, making it through another day, making it through another task. And I think that's one of the most commented on episodes in the Being Allowed podcast. So I'm gonna link it below. I suggest you listen to it because فيها حاجة كده ممكن تساعدنا كلنا نواجه الصعوبات very unexpected بتاعت الحياة. بس من كام يوم كده الويكند اللي فات زي ما أنا قلت في الانترودكشن كده، يوم السبت كان بالظبط البولر opposite بتاع يوم الجمعة. يوم الجمعة كان عندي كمية energy مش طبيعي إن أنا أعمل كل حاجة في الدنيا. وبجد I was able to spend the entire morning, the entire day really doing the important things بالنسبة لي, really being productive on a very personal level, because you know when the weekend comes along you want to do the things that make you happy, right? And I was able to do that really on Friday. بالليل خرجت مع أصحابي. We celebrated one of our friends proposing to his girlfriend who is now his fiance. It was just so happy. It was so great. And when you're on cloud 9 you feel like you cannot possibly imagine dropping to cloud 0. بس ده بالظبط اللي حصل لي يوم السبت، ان انا صحيت وبجد ان انا اعرف اطلع من السرير ده كان يعني من رابع المستحيلات. و I think a part of that I have to admit يعني was because عارفين لما تصحوا يوم السبت وتقولوا يا لهوي هو النهارده يوم الحد، هو الاسبوع ابتدى، وصحيت حاسه ان النهارده يوم الحد وان الويكند اتخطف مني وكده. بعدين جمعت ايه ده النهارده السبت، بس الاحساس بتاع يوم الحد فضل معايا. and what I did was انه فضلت قاعدة على الكنبة مش عارفة اتحرك، مش عارفة اقوم، مش عارفة اقرا. حاولت اقرا، وعارفين لما تفتحوا كتاب او تحاولوا تقروا اي كلمات وبجد تحتاجوا تقروا الجملة مثلا 99 مليون مرة because literally the words are not being soaked into your brain and you just can't do it anymore. فقفلت الكتاب وقررت انه you know what and I don't have any capacity for any information ان هو يخش مخي. Therefore, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do yoga, even if it's just the gentlest, slowest yin yoga. بس هو يبقى اسمي حركت جسمي وعملت أي حاجة. Instead, what ended up happening was إن أنا قعدت على الكنبة ما عملتش أي حاجة. In fact, I binge ate hot Cheetos, which if anyone knows me knows this is my guilty pleasure. قعدت أكل hot Cheetos واتفرج على TV. I watched hours and hours and hours. I binge watched a show that I hate. وبجد اللي هو أنا مش مبسوطة، واللي هو بقيت بسأل نفسي هو أنا ليه بعمل كده في نفسي؟ يعني I'm not even enjoying this show that I'm binging. I have things that I know I could do that will make me happy. At least much happier than I am right now doing absolutely nothing. But I could not get up. And my mood sucked. وكل ما حد يتكلم معايا أقفش عليه. أختي تكلمني بجد خلقي ضيق جدا. أهلي هم مسافرين، لقيت نفسي مش عارفة أرفع سماعة التليفون أكلمهم، مش قادرة أكلم أي حد، وفعلا ما كلمتهمش اليوم ده، وبقيت مش طايقة نفسي إن أنا ما كلمتهمش وكده. and it's just a loop, it's a cycle, you know, اللي هو one failure leads to another failure leads to another failure, and then you get in your head and anxiety becomes real and it just becomes so difficult to do anything. بعد كده على بعد الظهر كده let's say I think it was maybe 9 or 10، ده مش بعد الظهر ده بالليل. فعلى بالليل كده حسيت اوكي اليوم بيخلص. you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do one thing right. And it's a very difficult thing. But I needed to do it. So, in fact, indeed, I did. مسكت الجورنال بتاعي فتحته وسألت نفسي سؤال، أطيب سؤال. يعني it felt like such a hug to ask myself this question. And the question was, how are you doing today? Or how are you feeling today? I don't remember the exact words that I used. And literally, as soon as I wrote those words down, يعني I literally wrote the words how are you feeling today on the page قبل ما أجاوب على السؤال. وحسيت نفسي I started tearing up. I started getting extremely emotional. My heart felt like it was loud and pounding. And I just started writing and couldn't stop. And before I get into the importance of asking yourself this question, I wanted to talk about journaling in general, because this is a topic that I will keep coming back to, because I've been doing this ever since I was a little kid. You know, if it's a good day, I journal. If it's a bad day, I journal. And I like to say, يعني I would like to say, and then I journal every day. فعلا جالي فترة طويلة قوي، يعني 3/4 my life growing up I journaled every single day. بس طبعا the older we get, the more I don't know, the more responsibilities we have, the more in our heads we get, and it becomes a lot more difficult to discipline ourselves ان احنا نقعد ونjournal. فدلوقتي I don't journal every day, but I do journal often enough, like quite often. And let me tell you that this is a life-changing activity. It's a life-changing practice that I will continue recommending to every single person, because it's like free therapy. انت قاعد ماسك ورقة وقلم وبتكتب whatever is on your mind. It can be how you're feeling. It can be replaying a certain event in your life and kind of coming to terms with مثلا how you acted or how you reacted or what you should have said. ساعات كتيرة بنعيش الحياة وبيحصل مواقف and we don't really sit down to think about المواقف دي أثرت فينا ازاي أو فرقت في حياتنا ازاي. And it's important. Writing does that. Journaling does that. And you don't have to be a writer to journal. You can be a mathematician, a scientist, whatever. حد بجد كان بيكره الessays في الامتحانات، بس برضو you journal, you reap the rewards, we reap the good stuff that comes from journaling. This is just one very, very specific example of a journaling prompt that I keep coming back to whenever I don't have something specific I want to journal about, بس حاسة إن في حاجة يا إما على بالي يا إما على قلبي عايزة أطلعها أو عايزة أبروسس. وده بالظبط اللي حصل يوم السبت اللي فات، إن أنا مسكت الورقة والقلم واديت لنفسي البرومبت ده. How are you feeling today? And my heart cracked open, you guys. اكتشفت كمية حاجات كانت جوايا. أنا كنت فاكرة إن I was just having another weird grouchy day where my mood is just off. I thought it was just another day. But what I found was so much more. I found إن أنا كان بقالي أيام شايلة حاجات في قلبي that I hadn't processed. واكتشفت ان انا مش بس حاجات حصلت من قبل كده، اكتشفت ان في حاجات في المستقبل انا شايلة همها قوي و I'm being very اسمه ايه ده anxious about certain events that are gonna happen in the future و حاجات مستنية اكتشفها in the future وحاجات انا شايلاها في قلبي. و sometimes our bodies shutting down in the way that my body shut down this past Saturday is just a way إنه نصحى لأن our bodies can't handle anymore. It's our body's way of telling us, okay, we're burnt out. We can't show up for life anymore. We can't do the mundane, everyday, basic things anymore. We need to pause and think. And we need to pause and feel. And maybe just asking ourselves, how are you feeling today, is a key هيفتح الباب لحاجات يمكن احنا مش عارفينها. But the thing is that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery إن احنا نواجه نفسنا مخنا وقلبنا بأحاسيسنا وبأفكارنا. لأن ساعات it's easier إن احنا نخبي الحاجات دي ونستخبى منها بدل من إن احنا نواجهها. And yeah, for a moment this might seem like the more comforting thing. You know, I'm having a rough day. Maybe the last thing I want to do right now is confront myself with emotions and thoughts that might be hard, might be confronting, might be triggering, or thoughts and emotions that might require action مني, might require إن أنا أغير حاجة أو إن أنا أكلم حد أو whatever. And while I will say on some days it would be the kinder thing to kind of like, you know, avoid the confrontation in our minds and in our hearts, but it will catch up with us. It will catch up with you. Let me guarantee you that much. ده بالظبط اللي حصل لي يوم السبت اللي فات. My thoughts, my heart caught up with my body and forced me to do nothing all day. Literally nothing. Not even pick up the phone and call someone. And the kind thing for me to do on that day, when خلاص it all caught up with me, was to ask myself the question, how are you feeling today? Now, we talk a lot about community on this podcast, the importance of having other people in our lives, the importance of existing within a body of people يقدروا ان هم يرفعونا في ايامنا اللي احنا فيها حاسين ان احنا واقعين خالص ويفرحوا معانا في الايام اللي احنا فرحانين فيها قوي. بس I can't say that we can have that be our full reliance all day, every day, because at the end of the day, we only live with ourselves, right? الأصحاب بتيجي وبتروح والأصحاب عندهم حياة برضو هما كمان عايشينها. They too could be going through a rough day, a rough season, whatever. And we can't always count on other people being there. In fact, if anything, أيام زي يوم السبت اللي فات ده, I couldn't even lift my finger عشان dial a friend's like number and talk, or إن أنا أنزل وأشوفهم, where that could have been a possible thing ممكن أعملها في يوم تاني. بس ممكن أصحابنا ما يقدروش يبقوا موجودين لنا, وممكن إحنا ما يكونش عندنا المجهود for any social interaction on some days. And the person we're left with is ourselves. The only person we wake up with and go to sleep with at the end of the day is ourselves. And we shouldn't, يعني عايزين نمرر نفسنا إن إحنا منبقاش دايما متكلين على حد تاني هو اللي يسألنا how are you doing today. حد تاني هو اللي يسألنا how are you feeling today. Because while that is amazing, we need to be comfortable enough with ourselves to ask our own selves that question first. And it feels like a hug. It always feels like a hug coming from someone else, but from our own selves, when we ask ourselves that, ازاي إحساس liberating and freeing كده إن إحنا نحس إن أنا ممكن أسأل نفسي هو أنا عاملة إيه النهاردة وحاسة بإيه دلوقتي وأبقى موجودة لنفسي وأبقى self-sufficient لنفسي. لأن اللي حصل يوم السبت اللي فات هو لأنه as I uncovered, as I journaled, I was able to show up for myself. I was able to bring to the forefront of my mind things that were stuck in my subconscious من غير قصدي. أنا ما كنتش أعرف إن أنا شايلة كل الحاجات دي, بس لما I journaled الحاجات دي مرة واحدة بقت على بالي وفي مخي وفي قلبي, فقدرت إن أنا process them and let them go. And I went to sleep feeling so much lighter and so much happier for having shown up for my own self. I encourage you guys today, I encourage you to pick a pen and paper and ask yourself that question. Maybe today is too overwhelming and you feel like لا ان انا اعمل المجهود بتاع ان انا امسك ورقة وقلم is like a stretch, that's just going a little too far. So maybe just sit in front of a mirror where you can see yourself, look yourself in the eye, as awkward and uncomfortable as that might seem and feel for a moment. Find whatever way suits you, but be confrontational. Do it in a way where you are facing yourself, whether on a page or through your reflection in a mirror, and ask yourself, how am I really feeling today? How am I really doing today? And just wait and see. شوفوا what goes on in the depths of your heart and your mind. Give yourself the dignity and the respect. You're going through so much. Your journey is so fluctuating. You are going through highs and lows, and maybe this is a really happy season for you. And still show up for yourself on this really happy season for you, so that you can prepare yourself to show up for yourself when it matters, when you need it the most, which is when you're going through difficulties in life. Because not to be a Debbie Downer ولا أي حاجة, بس the reality of life is إن كلنا هنكون عندنا ups and downs في الحياة. Good seasons don't last forever, but that is good news, because what that means is tough seasons don't last forever either. But the important thing to do is to have dignity in the way that we show up in our lives. Ask yourself, be self-sufficient النهاردة. اسألوا نفسكوا ابقوا كفاية اسألوا نفسكم how am I feeling today, how am I doing today, and answer that question as honestly as you possibly can, and just wait and see the miracles بجد the miracles that can happen on the other side of that question. And I thought I would end today's episode by just giving you a few كده cozy, exciting tips, things to do to prepare your hearts as you prepare to ask that question. Because if you're listening to this on a rough day, or if you're deciding to do this, ask yourself this question on a rough day, maybe you need extra love. Maybe you need, to cushion the circumstances, cushion the situation, so that you're able to ask yourself that question. فقلت أديكوا كده some exciting ideas ممكن تشجعكم ان انتوا تسألوا نفسكم السؤال ده. حاجة بحب أعملها قوي هي انه at the end of a rough day, if I have it within me, which was not last Saturday, بس كتير قوي بحب ان انا املى البابل باث واحط باث بوم او bubble bath, مثلا eucalyptus او حاجة stress relieving, something very nice, وأقعد in the bathtub before I ask myself that question. And in the bathtub, I can read, I can listen to music, I can just sit in silence, whatever it is that I need. But I feel like that really prepares my heart, عشان it's like a gift from myself to myself. This, 10 minutes that I'm gonna carve out of my day to do something nice for myself. حاجة تانية, maybe light a candle. I am a humongous candle lover, and I actually can recommend a great local Egyptian brand بتعمل candles كلهم organic and very sustainable, and then you can reuse the jars and they're just so great. اسمهم Be Light Candle. You can find them on Instagram, and I personally recommend this brand so much. Just light a candle, the scent that is, something that you like. Maybe play some jazz music, some classical music, whatever kind of music really calms you down. For me, it's definitely jazz. Dim the lights. Sit in your favorite corner of the house or your favorite corner of the room and make it your own. Light the candles there, maybe. Dim the lights there. And just make a whole ceremony of this question. I feel like making a whole ceremony for self-care at the end of a rough day or the start of a rough day or whatever really prepares our hearts for whatever answers will come. So yeah, I hope those tips were useful, and ask yourself, how are you feeling today? Consider me asking you that before you ask yourself today. How are you feeling today? مش غلط عامة إن إحنا ندلع نفسنا every once in a while. It's like dating ourselves, taking ourselves on a date, a very nice, cozy date that allows us to go inward, because it's so important to go inward. If I've learned one thing over these past few years, it's that life will throw things at us when we least expect them. And we need to be able to give our lives the dignity that they deserve, give our stories and our journeys الاحترام بتاع ان احنا نعرف نباز often enough ونسأل نفسنا الأسئلة اللي ساعات بيبقى نفسنا ان حد تاني هو اللي يسألها. Ask your own self today, how are you feeling today? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me on another heart-to-heart chit-chat conversation here on the Being Aloud podcast. If you like today's episode, and if you are in support of the Being Aloud podcast in general, please feel free to like, share, subscribe. You can even become a paying subscriber to show that extra little bit of love for as little as $5. Yeah, I always have so much fun showing up for you guys, the way that this community has shown me that it shows up for me. And I am eternally grateful for you. And I cannot wait to see you next time.